It's the Sittin Sportside podcast, exclusively on 1045theteam.com.
Welcome into the Sittin Sportside podcast. I am Eric Hanneman right here on 1045theteam.com, the free 1045 The Team app, and on youtube.com/team1045. This is a great way to enter the podcast because we are super excited to be talking about the second base position in terms of fantasy and the 1045theteam.com preview of the fantasy baseball first base podcast. That's already up on those sites that I just talked to you about, 1045theteam.com on the Sittin Sportside podcast tab. Podcast, Sittin Sportside podcast, it's right there, ready to go. And I'm glad you're listening to this one as well. Second base, let's hop right into it because you know all about what this is about. Your drafts helping you pick who is the best to take at these positions. Now, second base is an interesting position because it's very similar to shortstop in the fact that there are a lot. It's kind of getting into. I mentioned in the first base podcast that third base, or should be first base, is kind of like surprisingly thin. Not thin like catcher, like really not a lot of good ones out there, but really the elite players are starting to turn to more of the keystone, like the middle infield, third base, like the elites are starting to be more of the infielders, middle infielders specifically. Like shortstop is stacked. Second base seems to be a little bit more stacked than it ever used to be. Outfield obviously is a huge part, but look, second base has a lot of good players. So let's hop right into it and look at where we're starting. As we start, as always, with what is the best pick and when is the first time you should take one of these people? Well, Jose Altuve, to me, he's a borderline first rounder. Jose Altuve is a borderline first rounder, so if you take him late first round, I don't think he's top 5. Let me start about that. I don't think he's top 5. But if you're taking him 9 or 10, I guess I could live with it. He's borderline first rounder, especially because of the stolen bases, right? I mean, he's a guy who only hit 13 home runs last year, but he still had 17 stolen bases. The essential Jose Altuve is getting you a 346 average with 24 home runs and 32 stolen bases. Like, that's the best Jose Altuve you're going to get. Obviously, that was his MVP year. Well, last year, he still hit 316. So he's going to give you one of the best averages in all of baseball. Like 100%, he's going to give you the best averages in all of baseball. So he's definitely a guy that I think is borderline first rounder. I guess the next question is, do you take Javier Baez over him ever? I think, and I'm not sure I did this in the other two podcasts, but is number 2 better than number 1? So like, was Paul Goldschmidt better than Freddie Freeman? Like, or not better, but is it okay to take one above the other? I think it is okay to take Goldschmidt over Freeman. Is it okay to take Baez over Altuve? I do think it is. Because I think if you're sitting there at 11 where Altuve is ranked on the list that I look at for this podcast, I think that's where Javier Baez is around. If you want to take Javier Baez around 11, 12, or 13, I'm 100% okay with it. And if Altuve hangs around there, I'm okay with that. Baez is going to give you more home runs and more RBIs. That's just a fact. The guy doesn't walk at all. He walked 29 times last year. I think in a points league, though, I am definitely and he had 21 stolen bases. Let's not forget about that. I mean, the guy had 21 stolen bases last year. That's right on par with what you've been getting from Jose Altuve. Let's not forget about that. And the 290 average, he'll never hit for the average that Altuve hits. But he's still at 290. There is a thought of, look, this guy could fall back and not hit 290. I mean, he put up 273 is his lowest average in a full season. But still, like, he's not going to get, 300 probably this year. Probably. So that's where you go with Altuve. But points leagues wise, with the strikeouts, maybe you lead toward Altuve because he doesn't strike out as much. But then again, the power numbers are there. The total bases are there. So I'm fine with any league. Baez going ahead of Altuve. So what's the next question? Let's keep going down. Gleyber Torres is ranked 48th overall in this. And the 4th second baseman off the board. He's right around Ozzie Albies. Albies was not very good down the stretch. 24 home runs last year is big. That's big time. 20, But if you look at the splits, my goodness. August and September. 4 home runs total. Not good. And the average was not good either. So he's a guy that kind of, maybe the length of the season got to him. I don't know. But Albies overall, still kind of like, eh. But what is Gleyber Torres getting you? You're getting a full season from Gleyber Torres. 24 home runs as well. Let's not bury that lead. In less ABs, he had 24 home runs as well. That's huge. Average was better. I'm going Torres 100% over Ozzy Albies. But where these guys are ranked around the late fourth, early fifth round, might be better people out there. And like I said, this is a deeper position than I think most people think. So I'm not necessarily wasting, I don't want to say wasting, but do I think Gleyber Torres is going to be better? Sure. Where's he batting, though? Is he still batting towards the bottom of the lineup? Do I think Ozzy Albies is good? Yes, I do. But even he fell in the order last year, and Brian Snecter's definitely butchered that last name, but that lineup. And the fall-off period was huge. He fell off amazingly. Like, not great. Not great if you're Ozzy Albies. I'm avoiding both of these guys, fourth or fifth round. They're there in the sixth. Talk to me. I'll probably draft them there. But I'm actually, and I could be on the wrong side of history here, but for this particular year, 2019 fantasy baseball second baseman, Altuve, Baez, Merrifield. I'm fine with Merrifield in the third round. But Torres and Albies, I'm waiting. I'm looking at Daniel Murphy in the eighth. I am looking at Jonathan VR pretty high too. I mean, this is a guy that was very, very good in the past for one season when he was getting everyday at-bats for the Milwaukee Brewers. Stole 62 bases, batted 285. He got a lot of ABs the next year when he fell off. But look what he did for Baltimore in 200 at-bats. 8 home runs, stole 21 bases, batted 258. That is more on par with the 2017 season. But I'm looking at Jonathan VR and I say, look, stolen bases are huge. He's probably ranked a little bit higher because of stolen bases in the category league. So in point leagues, what am I looking at VR? Probably less than the 8th round. Probably 9th, 10th, 11th, maybe even 12th. But Murphy and VR and D. Gordon and Scooter Gennett, where they're ranked, 1,000 times I'm okay with waiting that long to get one of those guys in my points league than I am with going up and getting Torres or going up and getting Ozzy Albies. Because those are guys that, yeah, sure, they can get you 20 home runs, but they're also not guys that I know for a fact I can get 20 home runs. And the average wasn't necessarily there. Gleyber Torres has the potential to have an approach that could hit him at 315 and end up with 20 home runs. But that approach did not come past June or July, or past his injury time last year, in my opinion. When he first came up, the approach was impeccable. I loved his approach. He was just trying to make contact with the ball, no matter when or where. He wasn't in the count. And then it turned into a home run fest. And I think his approach turned into wanting to hit more home runs, especially because he plays at Yankee Stadium, and didn't pan out, in my opinion. So that's why I'm avoiding those two, and I'm okay with taking Daniel Murphy. Daniel Murphy in Colorado, please. If he's eligible at second base, 100%. He's not even going to play second base. That'll help probably playing at first base full time, health-wise, you think. He's still a 300-type hitter. The 12 home runs he hit last year in half a season, if you double it and go to 24, I was about to say 44, maybe it will be a 44. No, it won't. That's a guy who probably could hit 30 home runs for you next year and still have a 300 average. Look, there's still a humidor in Colorado. People forget that. People forget that there is, a problem. Not a problem. People forget that when they say, oh, this guy shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame because he's in Colorado. There is a humidor. But there's no denying that the numbers usually increase. And this is a guy who in his last full season hit 322. Year before that, 347. Obviously, that World Series run where he hit a bunch of home runs. And last year, he had 299. Why is Daniel Murphy, I guess health reasons, why is he ranked for the 8th round? 100%. If I get Daniel Murphy in the 8th round, I love that more than Torres or Albies in late 4th, early 5th. So that's a guy I would really look at. What rounds this out in terms of the draftable usual players here. Robinson Cano and Brian Dozier around the 10th and 11th rounds. Those are huge. I mentioned Scooter Gennett. He's another guy that had a really good year last year. They'll probably continue to have success playing in Cincinnati with a better lineup. Let's not forget about the type of season that he had last year. A really big breakout, 23 home runs, 92 RBIs, and 310 average. Is that going to continue? I don't know. I mean, we had a decent Scooter Gennett for a long time in Milwaukee, in terms of, is he going to break out? Is he going to break out? Is he going to break out? I'm not sure they ever give him a full shake. He never did until he got to Cincinnati. Is that going to happen, though? Well, let's not forget his 2017 was pretty darn good, too. 27 home runs, 97 RBIs, 295. I think he found a home where he can really succeed in Cincinnati, and I still think that's a really good pick as well. Later in the draft, and I think it has just as much potential. Once again, wrong side of history maybe, but same type of potential as Gleyber Torres and Ozzie Albies. So keep giving me these later second baseman guys. Brian Dozier as well. I don't know where he's hitting in that lineup. I really don't. Still a really good lineup there. And we're not talking about a guy who's hitting high average, because that 215 is going to kill you in a category league. And in a points league, the total base is probably wasn't enough last season. He was really bad, average-wise. He's never been a big average guy, though. You're drafting a guy who could possibly hit 40 home runs for you. 34 in 2017. 42 in 2016. I think he can replicate that in the 30s. I'm taking a shot on Brian Dozier. 10th round? Yes. Robinson Cano with the New York Mets? 11th round? Yes. Come on! Let's not even think about this. The guy did steroids. The guy did PEDs. No steroids, but PEDs. All right? Nelson Cruz, after getting busted for PEDs, has put up to some of his best numbers. Why would I not draft Robinson Cano for that sole purpose alone? I know people who are baseball purists who might be listening to this are hating me, but I'm just saying, like, his numbers are good from the past. He didn't even play a full season last year, and if you play it out a full season the way his numbers are, it's 20 home runs, 100 RBIs, 303. I'm all over Robinson Cano 11th. So in these particular rankings, I am all over taking a second baseman later in the draft, maybe 10th and 11th round. I mean, those are, Daniel Murphy in the 8th, Dozier in the 10th, Gennett in the 9th, Robinson in the Cano in the 11th. Like, I love this. Let's not forget about Travis Shaw, who has second base eligibility because last year Mike Moustakas trade probably continued to be that way. Except for this year, you're not going to have Jonathan Scope in the mix. We'll get to him a little bit later in the podcast. You're not going to have him in the mix, so they're going to get everyday playing time, Moustakas and Travis Shaw. I don't know which one, because I actually heard that Moustakas is going to be tried out at second base. I think they'd be very similar in the rankings, but he right now, Travis Shaw has the eligibility, so I would definitely take a look at Shaw. And I just mentioned Jonathan Scope. Let's talk about him. Mid-rounds, 15th round, Jonathan Scope there. That's a bounce-back candidate. Right around Yoan Moncada and Cesar Hernandez. Those are all great candidates to have really good seasons that are mid-rounds. Like Moncada, there is problem with the average. There's problem with the strikeouts. 217 strikeouts last year. So in a points league, that guy is somebody you probably want to see him have a bounce-back year. Could you even call it a bounce-back year if you never really proved it in the major leagues? Probably not. So a breakout year for Moncada. You're hoping that could be the case. The problem is the 217 strikeouts is terrible. Like, this guy strikes out way too much. So his sample size in the major leagues hasn't been great, but he's still a guy you have to believe in, I think. But Scope, I would take Scope over him. I would take Cesar Hernandez over him. The guy was injured a little bit down the stretch last season, but he's still a guy who can get you. I mean, he strikes out a decent amount for himself too, but a 15-15 guy, maybe even a 20-20 guy. I don't know, but a better lineup. He scored 91 runs last year. If he's leading off again for the Philadelphia Phillies this year, with possibly Bryce Harper in the lineup, by the time you're listening to this, hopefully he's signed somewhere. And if it is Philadelphia, like, that lineup's just gotten better regardless. And if you add the bat like that, he's going to score more runs. So I probably take Scope and Hernandez over Moncada, but still, Moncada is a guy that could really break out at some point. We know what he can do on the base pass, as well as the power that was there. And by the base pass, I mean like a guy who's going to get you 10 to 15 stolen bases, but not necessarily, like these mind-changing numbers, game-changing numbers. But my point with that is that he's a guy who's going to get you in terms of the category-based enough to make it worthwhile. But at the same time, he needs to up the power numbers and up the average and put the bat on the ball more than he has, because man, oh my gosh, strikeouts are insane. So I would probably avoid that until he does have his breakout campaign. Ketel Marte is another guy who's a little bit lower. He's around the 19th, 20th round, ranked around there. And this is a guy who's going to get everyday playing time. I think I think in Arizona, somewhere in the outfield probably, and he's been good, especially in point leagues. So I think he's worthwhile if he's getting 600 ABs. I mean, that's a guy who could probably put up 17, 18, maybe close to 20 home runs, hit around 275. I like the possibility that Ketel Marte in his fourth season can really get a lot of things done with the Arizona Diamondbacks now that there's a lot out of there. I know that the production-wise, he might not get that many runs scored, enough runs batted in, but he's going to get the opportunity to play probably every day, I think. And he's a guy I would actually take my chances on. Another guy I'd take a chances on before we get into our deep sleepers, and this is probably more of a deep sleeper than anything, is Nick Senzel. Nick Senzel is a second base prospect for the Cincinnati Reds, actually a third base prospect as well. There's nowhere to put him. Scooter Gennett at second, as he talked about earlier in the podcast, and third baseman is Eugenio Suarez, so we'll talk about in the third base fantasy preview podcast. So when I look at Nick Senzel, who probably is going to have a good opportunity to play everyday center field for this team, he's going to have second base eligibility, give me Nick Senzel. I think he could possibly start opening day. He could be the 2 week and up kind of guy, like Chris Bryant and Vlad Guerrero Jr. is going to be this season. So I love Nick Senzel as a possibility of being a big time player and a big time shaker in the second base position this year because he's going to have that eligibility, and I think he's going to come up and play. So that's a sleeper to take a look at. I would hold him down for a couple of weeks, see how he's playing in center field during spring training, and see if they are very positive about that possibility in Cincinnati. So I like that possibility of Nick Senzel as a sleeper. Starling Castro and Joey Wendell are guys that are very low here, 22nd round, that I can think could put together decent seasons. I mentioned Marwin Gonzalez in the first base podcast. Another guy to take a look at here because of all of his versatility. And another deep sleeper before we get to the deep sleepers are Lourdes Gurriel Jr. and Jed Lowry. Jed Lowry had a really good year last year. And obviously Nico Goodrum, who I talked about as a deep sleeper in the first base podcast. Obviously, like I said, in that podcast, he's also eligible at second base, so that's big. But let's talk about Jed Lowry. Like, this is a guy who put together a really good year last year. 23 home runs, 99 RBIs, 267 average. It was very good throughout the year, and overall probably a top 100 player in both category leagues and maybe not category leagues, but definitely in points leagues, and he's close there in category leagues. So why can't he do that again in New York if he's going to get everyday playing time? And if Todd Frazier is not guaranteed everyday playing time at third base, why wouldn't Jed Lowry get everyday playing time at second base or third base in his own right? So I think that he's a guy who could do really, really good, Jed Lowry. And then Lourdes Gurriel Jr., for whatever reason, he's not guaranteed everyday playing time, but this is a guy that when he played pretty darn good. If you look at his splits, his July, 4 home runs, about a 4.23, and I get that later on in the season he didn't do as well as those numbers, but that showed that 71 ABs in July showed the type of player this guy can be, and so I like his possibility if he gets everyday playing time. The problem is you have a lot of good young infield prospects there, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. as well in terms of, I don't know if he's going to stay at third base, but he's going to be a big part of that infield as well, I think, at least early on. So there's a lot of questions of whether or not he'll get enough playing time. Let's talk about some deep sleepers. I think number one you look at is Luis Urias. I apologize if I've used the word Ortiz on a podcast before, and I think I used Ortiz on the last podcast about first base in terms of the player that's going to get playing time at shortstop, but that is the wrong name. It's Luis Urias. I don't know why I was going Ortiz in that podcast about Manny Machado, and Luis Ortiz is the Padres field and hitting coordinator. So I guess that's how he got mixed up. I don't know, but it's Luis Urias. Excuse me on that one. Luis Urias. Hopefully, if you listen to that podcast and were yelling at me, you are now relieved that I corrected myself. But Luis Urias is going to get a possibility to play every day at shortstop probably this year. I don't know. Once again, I don't know what they're going to do with Machado, but whether he's playing shortstop or second base, he has at least has second base eligibility. So Luis Urias is a guy to take a look at. He's going to get everyday possibility, and he's been a really good player in the minor leagues, so he can possibly do it in the major leagues. Adam Frazier is the guy to take a look at. He's going to get possibly almost everyday playing time in the outfield and has second base eligibility for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So why not give him a chance? I think he's a guy who in a half a season with 300 ABs, 10 home runs, and about a 277. So multiply that 20 home runs. That gets you about with the RBIs doubling. You get about 70 RBIs. 35 plus 35 is 70. So give it to me. Yeah, give me Adam Frazier as a possible deep sleeper for the second base position. And other guys that are still kind of sleepers are Ian Kinsler, Ben Zobrist, Eduardo Nunez, and Jeff McNeil. These are guys that I guess people don't think they're going to get everyday playing time. We know there's a third base possibility for Eduardo Nunez to not get playing time at third base because there's some young people. There's obviously Devers, but there's also some young players. But what about Dustin Pedroia? I mean, Dustin Pedroia is a guy that probably isn't going to get back into the major leagues. You wouldn't imagine. I don't know his injury possibility, but there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee he's going to play this year. In the Red Sox are confident that he can help them this season, but I still think that you're going to have mainly Eduardo Nunez at second base. Maybe Brock Holt. I know that he's still there, and there's Michael Chavez, who's a third base prospect in their minor league system. So I guess I get that there is a sense of maybe there's not enough help there. But once again, those three, I'm going to name them again: Jeff McNeil, Eduardo Nunez, Ian Kinsler, Ben Zobrist. While the playing time in the past, the playing time isn't always there. There are guys that are deep sleepers, I guess, in a way. I mean, some of those are well known, and Eduardo Nunez and Ian Kinsler, I think, are relatively well known, and definitely Ben Zobrist and Ian Kinsler. But there's still guys that aren't ranked that high, and that could be big time contributors. And another one that I believe that is Franklin Barreto. I know Jurickson Profar might get more time on second base. I don't know that for a fact. But if you have an opportunity for a guy like Franklin Barreto to get absolutely playing time now that Jed Lowry is gone and Marcus Semien gets short, maybe Barreto gets second. I take a look at him. He's had really good minor league numbers. I would take a look at Franklin Barreto. That is my deep sleeper that I really like. Franklin Barreto of the Oakland Athletics. I think he really, if he gets everyday playing time, can actually do really good and be kind of the Jed Lowry of this season. And they need him to be because they need. I know they got Profar, but they need someone to step up in that lineup if they want to get back to the playoffs like they were last season. So where do we fall in terms of the essential second base pick? And once again, the essential pick for each position goes to where is their most valued player in terms of where I can get the player and the production that they're going to give me. Last one I picked for first baseman, the guy was ranked in the 50s, and I picked him there. This one is actually a little bit lower. He's ranked in the 80s. I raved about him earlier in the podcast. My essential second base pick for the value that I can get him, and maybe he'll go earlier because a lot of people are thinking about this too, but it's Daniel Murphy. It's definitely Daniel Murphy. He's a guy to me that is top 40 talent. Could give you a top 40 season. Bats in the 300s. He's playing in Colorado, or bats in the 300s. He can hit 20 home runs in a year. Get RBIs galore. Score a lot of runs for you. Those are all the essential categories, obviously, other than stolen bases for the category leagues. But for points leagues, a lot of total bases. He's getting on base a lot, scoring runs, driving in runs. And then you add in the fact that he's playing in Colorado. I know there's the injury problems, but if this guy plays an entire season, he gets the Colorado boost that everyone loves. Then Daniel Murphy is a top 4, top 5, top 3, could be the top second baseman in all drafts. Get him in the 8th round, even the 7th round, possibly reaching him and getting him in the 5th or 6th round. He is my essential second base pick. So that's my second base preview podcast. I hope you enjoyed this one as well. It gives you a lot of knowledge. If you have any questions, you can tweet at me and ask them at EricH1045. I'll answer them throughout the season if you have any. And if you have any other questions, or complaints, at Mike James 1045, especially the complaint part. But we really hope that you do tweet at those or Sittin Sportside tweets. It's just at Sportside tweets. That's also a good place to reach us. But we're really looking forward to this season with you guys. And look out for another podcast with me and Mike James talking about the Manny Machado signing with San Diego, as well as the NFL free agency. Where will the Jets go in terms of what they're going to sign this offseason, and possibly in the draft? Is it Josh Allen or Quinnen Williams, which was the essential pick there of those two, or can you not lose with either one of them? And then last but not least, we have our first ever movie review podcast on the Sittin Sportside podcast on 1045theteam.com. It's going to be of Glass. And we brought it up on the podcast before. If you ever heard a promo, I'm not sure the promo ever aired, but we talked about Split with our fellow host, past host Matt Hogan. We will talk to Mike James about it, and we'll do that podcast as well. So that'll be a fun movie review. And if you like that, go listen to it first, and then if you like it, tweet at us, and we'll do a little bit more of those because I think those are fun. So once again, my name is Eric Hanneman. Keep listening to 1045theteam.com, youtube.com/team1045, 1045theteam.com, the podcast tab, Sittin Sportside podcast, as well as 1045 The Team and Big Board Sports at 10 to noon, and Levac and Goss from 2 to 7. So keep listening to all the content at 1045theteam.com. There's so many podcasts, so go listen to another one right now of our Sittin Sportside podcast, including our Hall of Fame Classic interviews. They're on the playlist. Go seek them out. They're fun. Even some old podcasts where you can look at and listen to our Super Bowl prediction from this year and how wrong we were. Our playoff predictions. My favorite one was the divisional championship playoff predictions. So that was a fun podcast. It might not be fun to listen to if you think about if you go into a pessimistic view of, these games already happened. If you will go into it listening thinking, I can make fun of these guys when they get all these predictions wrong, there's a really funny part around the 20-minute mark. I really think you're going to enjoy those podcasts. So I really would encourage you to listen to those podcasts as well. And if you don't, at the very least, you made it to the end of this one. And I want to thank you for that. Thank you for listening to the end of this Sittin Sportside podcast and any other Sittin Sportside podcast. Please, 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 please continue to listen to us. We really appreciate it. So once again, my name is Eric Hanneman. Thank you for listening to 1045theteam.com and the free 1045 The Team app. And if you haven't, download it now.